Hi, I'm Jason Levine. Today's guest has been journaling since the 3rd grade, hoping someone would find those journals and that they would change history. Now she's got a book, a pop culture movement with #SmartBrownGirl, and more than 10 million views on her YouTube channel. Let's talk to Jouelzy on this week's Make It. Jouelzy, thank you so much for joining me in the studio today. It's so great to have you on Make It, and we're really excited to chat with you. And I wanted to start by saying, I mean, you really do a lot of different things. You're a YouTuber, an author, and we're going to talk about your book, digital influencer, pop culture aficionado, hair care specialist?
That's how I started, but not where I'm at now.
That's right. So yeah. I thought maybe it would be interesting because you actually, that's where you started kind of your journey on YouTube, right? Getting your message out. So how did that kind of begin and what was the origin of that?
I was living in Brooklyn, New York at the time, and I was working in the music industry, and I was fresh out of college. And I noticed there were all these girls on YouTube talking about hair, and they were getting free weave, and I wanted some.
Okay.
So I opened my laptop, and I started recording videos because I realized there was no one talking to the professional, career-minded woman who likes to wear extra hair.
Oh, okay.
And so I wanted to do something that was more targeted at women like myself.
Right.
And I started there, and the free weave didn't come soon enough, so I did take care of my real hair. And I also happen to live in a space where I have a very textured type of hair, and that's not often seen in the kind of natural hair care market. So I built up an audience because I was speaking to an often overlooked market in the natural hair care scene. And then that lasted till about 2013.
Okay.
Where I just was like, you know, I'm so much more intelligent than my hair. And I was just kind of like, I didn't really like the shallowness of it or having to think about my hair on a daily basis. And I had gone through the process of like applying for my MBA and realizing how much the world seeks to define Black women.
Right.
That I started a movement called Smart Brown Girl to help encourage young women of color to define their own success story.
Right. And thus began the hashtag.
Smart Brown Girl, yes. And that's pretty much where my channel has gone in the past 3 years, yes.
Right. Now, you're kind of like a hashtag expert, too, because you've also got Pop Snark. And I know when I first saw one of your videos and saw that, like, I just gravitated towards it. So what was the origin of that?
That's like everyone's favorite thing that I do on YouTube. Like, my audience is always like, when's the next Pop Snark? So Pop Snark is, I talk about everything from the low brow to the high brow, as long as your eyebrows are on fleek. And so the goal of Pop Snark is to meet my audience at the intersection of like pop culture, history, politics, and culture at large, because we do live in a pop culture era where everyone is so immersed in what's happening with celebrities and what's on TV and what's happening with Beyonce or Kim Kardashian. And so I also think there's lessons to be taught in that, and I want to inspire a certain level of critical thought to encourage young women to better themselves, better their communities, be invested. And it's not really fun just to get up and say, hey, this is what a city council person does. It's more fun to talk about in the context of how Kim Kardashian has inspired social currency and how you can use that to invest in your community and use social currency to get things done on the political spectrum. So it's like trying to intersect these really highbrow ideas with the more lowbrow things that we tend to absorb on an everyday basis. So.
As long as the brows are on fleek.
Yes, as long, well, my brows, you know, we have a good, it's to keep it fun, right? Like I have a cocktail and, you know, it's like having a good key with your friends.
Right. Now, what we have before us here, some people may not have seen one of these before, depending upon their age.
I'm horrible at promoting them, so some people on my channel may not have seen this before.
This is a book.
Yes.
Available digitally, but also available
on the interwebs.
In paperback.
Yes.
You actually printed this book.
I did.
Called Send It On. Now, this came out in 2014.
It did.
So this is kind of in the middle of, you've developed Smart Brown Girl now, your YouTube channel is growing.
Right.
How did this come about?
So I actually started collecting short stories based on my own emotional journey. I was living in New York at the time, and that is a really quick way to grow up. And I say my adulthood and my course to maturation happened in New York City. And I had a friend who was like, yo, you just lived such a wild life. You need to start writing it down and writing about it. So I was like cataloging these stories. So I used my own personal experiences as the basis. It is fiction though. And I had basically had the book written for almost 8 years. But I was just nervous about putting it out. Like, would anybody buy it? Would anybody care? my friends were like, no, you just need to go ahead and put it out. You have an audience now. It speaks to exactly what you're talking about with Smart Brown Girl.
Right.
To this kind of emotional journey that we go through.
But you took that even a step further, because on your site, your native Jouelzy site, you actually did a how to self-publish tutorial.
I have a whole tutorial on how to, this is a lot of work. I think, you know, at the time I figured I know how to work InDesign. I have the book written, I just have to lay it out. And there's all these different functions that the different publishers have, that these rules and guidelines that you have to follow. And it's just nerve-wracking because I think a lot of us don't pursue entrepreneurial courses because we're so insecure about various things that we get caught up in our own head. And so I think we overthink the self-publishing process.
And of course, actually, it's really picked up, though. And you said yourself, like, you don't even promote it that much.
Right.
But you've got 5-star reviews and lots of them and a lot of great positive feedback from exactly the, I mean, from people saying, wow, you really spoke to me in this story.
And you never know till you put it out. I think it's one of those things, self-publishing is a really good learning lesson because you learn so much along the way. And even just having to, like, think about your brand identity and brand marketing and how to get the different things done. So I'm like, you know, I'm proud of the work that I put out, and I definitely need to do a better job at promoting it.
All right, so now let's transition on to the video side of things, because I know you actually moved from being a Final Cut editor over to Premiere Pro.
I love the accessibility of the freedom to kind of control the way different things happen in your video.
And integrate with all the other softwares
yes,
as well.
You know, the workflow is really good across Photoshop, which I use a ton. So.
Right, and that's actually, so on the couch we've got one of your other many
and
ventures.
on me.
Yes,
yeah,
on
my
you,
many ventures
As
here.
I'm pointing, sorry, yes.
Many streams of passive income is the goal,
That's
and
right.
Adobe helps me get there.
Multiple incomes.
Yeah,
Ooh, that's
so
perfect.
This is a bag, a tote, and I have a store. So I've designed, all my apparel is designed between Illustrator and Photoshop.
Nice.
So
Nice.
definitely necessary tools.
Oh, yeah. For creating,
Mm-hmm.
right. Okay, so back to video for just a second. So when you're creating your YouTube content, I mean, obviously you spend a lot of time putting these together, editing them, lighting them. I've noticed that in your videos, they're beautifully lit.
Thank you.
Eyebrows always on fleek. Everything,
Yes.
yeah, I mean, it's obvious.
You want the visual, ties people into what you're actually saying, so it's very important.
It's got to look good. It's got to
Yeah.
be a good representation of you. This is kind of your thing. And one thing that you're not afraid to do as a smart brown girl is to speak your mind honestly. How did you build up that confidence and really take that to the next level? Because as you read comments in your videos, I mean, you've got support.
Yeah.
And people, I think, they're amazed that you can be so free with your words.
I've always been really big on integrity. Right? And so I think integrity means that I understand the weight of my words, and I understand that I need to mean what I say and say what I mean. So it's not even just that I feel like I always try to be honest. It is that I think about how what I put out into the world is going to impact others. And I make sure to speak a language that speaks to people that communicate on different wavelengths, right? Everyone communicates differently. So, and I've tried to get away from being super repetitive, because when I first started, I used to say the same thing 5 different ways because I was so worried about all these different type of backgrounds, understanding the point I was trying to get across, to now that I have gotten it down much better. And I've definitely grown with my YouTube channel, right? In being able to be a better communicator. And to speak so strongly. But it's also been, it's part of the mission of Smart Brown Girl, right? Because I want young women especially to be confident in what they say. Like there was an article, I think in like Forbes or something, about stop saying just. I'm just emailing you, I'm just calling. Like you're there. When you walk into an interview, right, one of the biggest tips I've ever heard was you are there to not sell yourself because you've already gotten the interview. You are there to show how confident you are in your work. So confidence is so important, and we do all this, I don't know, and this double talk, all it does is detract from people understanding what you're trying to communicate and trusting in you. And I think a lot of my audience connects with the fact that I speak so strongly because they can trust what I say. Because I've said what I had to say, and you know, it can always come back to haunt me. So
of course, you're saying it for a purpose. And this isn't easy to do. It's bold, right? I mean, you have to, you're taking a risk.
I loved, you know, it's like we all read Anne Frank, right? In school. And you're thinking about somebody's journal became a part of history. And I was always the kid that like, I kept journals since 3rd grade. So because I was always like, someone's gonna find my journal. It's gonna like change the way culture is defined. But you know, you think about how people's words can shape history. And I think especially in the times that we are in now, I do think a lot about when we look back at history and we're talking about these vast amount of people, right? Like these people allowed this to happen. We're like, how did they allow that to happen? I don't necessarily want to be that person that's lumped in with the general population, right?
Right.
Like I want to be comfortable with the fact that I know that I stood for something. And it was, a lot of it was inspired because we went to the Holocaust Museum as a child. So it's like a lot of this understanding how something so innocent as someone just keeping a journal matters in the grand context of how we look back at history.
Right.
So yeah.
People need someone who's kind of out of that fear box, who really can, show them that they can create something like that and say it and live by it.
Show them that they can create their own legacy, because what I do is so accessible to so many different people. I think I don't just want people to look at me and think, oh wow, she communicates so well. I also want them to like be able to watch what I do, and not necessarily that I'm telling them how to be, but that they take bits and pieces of it and shape it into their own image of themselves.
Sure.
Right? Because I think that's one of the great things about social media. It's also a little frustrating. Everybody has a platform now, but we do all have a platform, and it's all about how you decide to utilize it. And we all have access to it.
So now what's next for Smart Brown Girl, Pop Snark, and Jouelzy? Where do you see yourself evolving? You've already had several evolutions in different mediums.
I have not done audio.
Okay.
So that's the next one, right?
Okay.
I'm trying to get a podcast.
Okay.
So that's been a long goal.
Nice. Podcasts still they're hot, right? People still listen to podcasts, and it really draws people in a different way, because obviously now they can't see you. So it's
now your voice really matters.
Your voice really matters. It's color, face, eyebrow blind at this point, right? It's just what you have to say, and that too it's a bold statement to take.
Yeah.
You should do that.
Yeah.
You should do a podcast.
I am, but I want it to be a really structured, well-produced podcast.
Yes. So now, what kind of gear do you shoot with when you're creating your videos today?
Canon 80D.
Okay.
I have a Sigma art lens.
Nice. Okay.
And I use a teleprompter.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
I am a very long-winded person.
Okay.
So helps keep me concise.
Interesting, because I got to tell you, again, watching a lot of those videos, I didn't get that sense. It seems very. It's also your cut style too.
Yeah.
I mean, you've got a definite style in how you're cutting it. It's fast. It's like you got to be listening. You got to be paying attention. All right. So last question now. So what do you see yourself doing in 10 years?
Oh my gosh, 10 years. I'll be in my 40s. I see myself being fabulous at 40.
Of that, I'm sure.
I've been thinking about getting my PhD in history.
You mentioned you're a huge history buff.
I love research, and I'm kind of late sometimes in talking about pop culture things because I like to watch things happen. The gossip circuit is really big just across all social media platforms and even on TV.
Sure. And there's lots of it.
Yeah, I never just want to be a person that's just like talking about what Kanye and Kim have done, right? I want to talk about it in context of, more critical thought. So I do a lot of research just to make sure that what I am saying is based on actual facts.
Right.
Not alternative facts.
Oh, there you said it. Yep.
So it does take a good bit of research, and I think sometimes I kind of second guess even how I go about research. And I think it's really important about how do we look back at history. I keep coming back to this thing about looking back at history, right? Because 2017 is going to be history. Right. And we're living in a very historical period.
Oh, yeah.
How do we collect that information? Who gets to collect that information? And who's retelling the different narratives that are existing in this space? Right? And so I think getting a PhD in history would help me to learn more about how to collect the information and how to shape the narrative that is coming out of this era for people like myself.
Nice.
I would like to have my own family. And I really, with regards to Smart Brown Girl, I really want to take it from just beyond this YouTube and social media space and creating a resource for other young women who kind of, or like myself, are first generation college students, didn't come from a lot of access to leadership roles, people that had careers in leadership.
Sure. And really build that brand out on just a larger scale.
To give access to people that are trying to find their way, because I think so often there's this narrative of if you're a creative or you want to do your own thing, you have to go to like San Francisco, LA, or New York, and those are very expensive.
Right.
But I think the girl in Jackson, Mississippi can if she has the right tools
Right.
and she knows the tools to pick
Right.
up,
She can do it.
she can do it right in her location, that we don't all have to have this great migration to these really expensive cities in order to be inspiring creatives,
Right.
or even inspiring if you want to be the person that's doing operations management or the engineer. You don't have to be in the center of the world for that to happen. You can be in, you know, the swamps.
Right. Well, Jouelzy, it was so awesome to finally meet you in person and have you here. And as mentioned, I can't wait to see the next evolution of what you're doing. We wish you the best of luck with
Thank
Smart
you
Brown
so
Girl
much.
and all of your ventures. And you're an inspiration.
Well,
So
thank you for having me for this
Absolutely.
opportunity.
Ah, the pleasure is mine. So again, don't forget to tune in to Make It every week, where we showcase incredible creatives showcasing their amazing work, their amazing talents, their amazing personalities. And you can only find it here on the Creative Cloud YouTube channel. So until next time, we'll see you again.
Bye.